What's up guys, it's Tommy here and welcome to a big football breaking news video. The Telegraph and the Daily Mail is reporting that the top 10 Premier League clubs except Manchester City and Sheffield United are appealing to uphold the Champions League ban for Manchester City even during the appeal process. So UEFA banned Manchester City from competing in the Champions League for 2 years, and they appealed for the Court of Arbitration of Sports. And now the Premier League's top clubs, Liverpool, Manchester United, Chelsea, Arsenal, Tottenham, and all the rest in the top 10 except Sheffield United are appealing for Manchester City not to play in the Champions League even during the appeal process. And I think this is a very interesting topic that we need to talk about. So let me know guys, do you think that these top clubs are making the right decision with this appeal? Because the situation is, with the current ongoing problems around the world and football being postponed, Manchester City's appeal has been postponed as well, so we don't know when the appeal process will be concluded. And normally during the appeal process Manchester City would be allowed to play in the Champions League. That means that if the appeal process lasts well into next season, then Man City would be able to play in the Champions League next season. And I will be honest, I don't feel that is right, because UEFA already banned Manchester City. They have very good reasons to ban Manchester City from the Champions League, because Man City didn't adhere and didn't follow the financial fair play rules that every other club in England have followed, and that makes Manchester City very guilty, in my opinion. And yes, the Court of Arbitration for Sport will look into it, but it just doesn't feel right that Man City would just be able to play in Europe this season and even next season until the appeal process is concluded, because the Man City could hire the best lawyers and they could drag this out for years, and that wouldn't have the necessary impact on Manchester City, in my opinion. They could just sign up all the players and saying to them that they will play Champions League football next season, and that wouldn't really affect them in any way, shape or form. So it was an exclusive article in the Daily Mail, but the Telegraph also published it, that the entire top 10 of the Premier League, except Man City and Sheffield United aren't included in this because they have an Arab owner as well. I'm not sure if he's from Abu Dhabi. The fact is, the Sheffield United didn't join this process, but all the other top clubs in the Premier League submitted a joint application to the Court of Arbitration for Sport, which of course will hear Manchester City's appeal. Each and every club have separately written to the same law firm, which has then sent an application backed by all clubs to the arbitrary body. And this is very interesting in my opinion. Basically all the other top clubs want Man City out of Europe, so they have a bigger chance of getting into the Champions League. Because for example, for Manchester United, for Tottenham, for Arsenal, this is a huge opportunity to finish in 5th place in the Premier League and still get Champions League football. So this is what it's all about. And let me know guys, do you think that the clubs are just looking after their own interests, or do you think that it would be fair and right for Man City to not play in Europe, to not be able to compete in the Champions League even during the appeal process? Because yes, in court you are innocent until you are proven guilty, but Man City already has a guilty sentence. Man City already was found guilty of breaching financial fair play rules by the biggest governing body in Europe, UEFA. So you can't really say that Man City are innocent, can you? I think that Man City are guilty. It's just difficult to say how much they are guilty. But I think a 2-year ban is right. It sounds and it feels right, because Man City broke the rules for so many years, and they signed up so many expensive players. Like if you look at the Man City squad, almost every player in the squad is worth at least 30 million. Some of them are worth 40, 50 million pounds, and they were signed for that amount of money. And this appeal process is requesting that their punishment is upheld and it is stayed while their appeal is ongoing. And of course, all the clubs strongly object to Manchester City taking part in the Champions League while this appeal process is ongoing. And this is a significant development, and it just shows what all the top clubs in England think about Manchester City and what they think about Man City's behavior in recent seasons since they have been taken over. And one source outlined the knowledge of the situation, saying that the other clubs are outraged about Man City maybe being able to play in Europe while the appeal process is ongoing. The source said the feeling is that enough is enough. For too long, Man City have been able to get away with breaching the rules at the expense of at least one other club that has been unable to get into the Champions League because of Manchester City. The fear is that they will be able to delay any punishment, and should they win the appeal and get off scot-free, which would be outrageous and very, very unfair, the other clubs feel. And basically, this whole appeal process is, I think, just a ploy for Man City to reduce the punishment, but also to postpone punishment, so they can be better prepared. And if it's postponed and Man City can play in the Champions League next season without consequence, really, without any problems, it just feels wrong to me. And I will be honest, if I were UEFA, I think a lot harsher punishment would have been to just kick out Manchester City from the Champions League right now, when the decision was made to find Manchester City guilty. But that probably is legally not right, and probably Man City would have been able to appeal that as well. But I think it's a very, very big and very interesting development that all the top clubs in the Premier League feel that Man City should be not playing in Europe while the appeal process is ongoing. So let me know what you think about that. But I want to show you the other side of the argument, because the Daily Mail's columnist Martin Samuel is saying that this appeal from the other clubs to keep Manchester City out of Europe while the appeal process is ongoing is just a shameful power play. So this, I just want to be very clear, this is Martin Samuel's opinion and not mine. And for obvious reasons, and the pandemic is going around in the world, this appeal process has been delayed, and this has led to the suspension of business and ongoing things at the Court of Arbitration for Sport, which is just a sad thing, because now Man City's appeal process won't be completed probably until well into next season. And yes, it's true, Martin Samuel is right that Manchester City didn't really want to drag it out. They wanted to have the hearing as soon as possible. But I think the lawyers know that this appeal process won't go quickly. The Court of Arbitration for Sport has a big backlog of cases to go through before they can deal with this Manchester City appeal process. And there is no guarantee whether the Court of Arbitration for Sport could conclude this appeal process before next season's Champions League starts, and that's where the problems come. What do you do with Manchester City? Do you allow them to play in next season's Champions League, even though right in the middle of the season the Court of Arbitration for Sport could just throw out Manchester City's appeal and they could say, yes, Man City are guilty, and then what do? Do you just kick them out of the Champions League in the middle of the season? But then you can't pick one out of the Europa League, an English club, and put them into the Champions League. That would be really, really unfair and just not the right thing to do, in my opinion. And also there are some reports coming out of England saying that the summer transfer window could be extended to January, as English clubs explore radical new proposals with uncertainty over when this season will be finished. And of course the transfer window is due to open on June the 10th, and now Thankfully, the English transfer window will be open until September the 1st as well. But what if this season won't be finished until September the 1st? Then you have to extend the summer transfer window until, like, maybe not to January, but maybe until you can finish this season and then have a little bit of a 2 or 3 week break and then start next season. That's what I think they should do. They shouldn't just put a date until, you know, the summer transfer window is open. It should be a fluid situation, because the situation is ever changing each and every day. It's ever changing, so you can't really predict how the summer transfer window will be able to be concluded, because you don't know when this season will be able to finish and you don't know when next season will be able to start. What I'm very happy to report about is that Brighton and Hove Albion came up with a campaign to offer tickets, free tickets to NHS workers after this crisis is over and football will be able to resume with fans in the stadium. I think that will be well into next season when that happens. But I think it's a brilliant campaign, a brilliant idea to reward the English and the United Kingdom NHS workers for their hard work and for all that they have to go through in this crisis. I think they have the hardest job now in the world, in my opinion, and I think all clubs should follow. And Brighton and Hove Albion invited all the Premier League clubs to follow their lead and to offer as many as 100,000 free tickets available to NHS workers across professional football. So not just the Premier League, but the English Championship and the lower leagues should offer free tickets as well. So I invite my favorite club, Liverpool, to join this campaign and to offer free tickets to NHS workers working in the Liverpool area, in the Merseyside area. And they should offer them free tickets to Liverpool games, Liverpool home games, when it's safe to, of course, we have to say that when it's safe to attend home games in the Liverpool stadium. And the appeal is saying, and this campaign is saying, that if each of the 92 professional football clubs in England committed on average just 1,000 tickets, with the FA donating for a future England international, the Scottish Premier League, the Irish leagues could also contribute, we could easily offer well over 100,000 tickets for these heroes, the NHS workers, because in my mind and in this article it says that they are heroes. We are seeing some brilliant initiatives from clubs all over the world, and I am hopeful that there is more to come from the football family. And we also have to stress that Pep Guardiola donated £1 million from his own money to the NHS workers, to hospitals, to help in this pandemic. So I think we have to applaud and commend Pep Guardiola for this brilliant gesture as well. And of course, the biggest support we can all show our NHS heroes is by following that crucial government advice on social distancing, self-isolating, hand hygiene, and also to stay at home whenever you can, whenever it's possible. And Bournemouth also said, we are absolutely delighted to match Brighton's gesture and commit to 1,000 tickets as well, and we will pass the baton to another club with the aim of reaching significant target so football as a whole can show its appreciation for our country's NHS workers. And also the Telegraph is reporting that the Premier League is discussing asking players to take significant wage deferrals during this postponement of the season. So when there is no football, many clubs, not especially in the Premier League, but especially in the lower leagues, will struggle to pay the wages of their footballers. I heard that just in the Championship, the 107% of the club's turnover is player wages, which means that they are basically paying more money on average to all their players than they are making. And that's not a good and sustainable model, in my opinion. And according to one senior club executive, this move is inevitable, that not just Premier League clubs but all professional football clubs in England are discussing asking players to take significant pay deferrals, possibly by as much as 50%, with growing pressure on the Professional Footballers Association to agree to these wage cuts. The move is inevitable because there is just not enough revenue coming in during this time, and we are looking at possibly months without football. And in those months, especially in the lower leagues, how will the clubs pay the wages? Because many clubs operate on a week-to-week basis, and if they don't have home games and revenue coming from home games and coming from sponsors and from TV rights, how can they keep paying the wages of their footballers? So I think a 50% pay cut is sensible, because the players are basically just staying at home. And yes, they are keeping up with the training regime that they are given, but they can't really play football, so they can't do their work. So it's quite possibly right to cut their wages. And I think Premier League footballers shouldn't have any money problems, but in lower leagues the players could have money problems. So it's a delicate, very tricky situation as well. But of course this will only happen if the players agree to it as well. So I think in the Premier League potentially most players should agree to it, but I think you should cut the wages of like the top like 10-15 earners of the club by like 50% or maybe even more, and the players who earn a lower wage, you shouldn't cut those wages by that amount, which might be unfair. But I mean, if a young player or a reserve goalkeeper who is not young, but a reserve goalkeeper who has a family, and you cut his wages by 50%, he might not earn enough to keep paying his mortgage or to keep paying his bills, which is hard to understand in the Premier League. But in lower leagues, I think that could be a scenario that could happen. So yeah, that's my opinion. Let me know what is your opinion in the comments below, and I really hope that you guys enjoyed this video. Thanks for watching. See you later, guys. Goodbye.